In one of my other reviews, I don't know which to be honest, I said that the only Marvel product left that I was interested in was Loki Season 2. And here we are. I was interested in this show because the first season was some of the only good content to come out of the MCU Disney Plus shows, with the others ranging from solid enough to superhero schlock. Surprisingly, a show that revives a character with a satisfying death and places him into a super techie environment was actually kinda sick. And then, only a few days before release, Disney did what they do best, which is create stupid bullshit that no one asked for. Loki Season 2 got an AI-generated poster, just like the Secret Invasion intro, and everyone rightfully got to shitting on it. They don't pay their writers, they don't pay their actors, their CGI team is going on strike, and clearly they don't care about their artists either. For these reasons, I was considering not even watching the show. But listen, I have been planning for Loki Season 2 to be my escape from the MCU for a long time now. It would feel really weird to say that I've been out of it ever since I saw Guardians 3 in May. So we're gonna do just this one so I can have a bit of a goodbye to a franchise that I actually did like at some point. Okay? Okay. Spoilers, by the way. Let's begin. After standing in the same place for 2 years, Loki decides to get up off his ass and do something. He runs away from the TVA, who really do have no clue who he is, jumps out a window, accidentally murders someone, then teleports back to the present. This whole sequence is kind of hilarious, but it is worth mentioning that the show decides to pretty much instantly remove Loki from the time that he was left in a cliffhanger from, might I remind you, 2 years ago? That seems like something that would be really disappointing, but if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have liked to see him restart from scratch, so I think bringing him back to the present was the right move, even if it takes away from the first season's ending. So after a bit of Loki struggling with finding Mobius, we get a scene of a meeting where Mobius, Hunter B-15, a judge, and like a dying old man are discussing pruning, which is a term that I completely forgot, so I was a bit confused here. But I was also distracted by the realization that they've managed to go this long without giving one of the main characters a name. Loki finally is able to show up in the right place this time around, realizing that the first place he was in was the past, and he then shows everyone what he learned in basically the only clip of this episode being posted on Twitter. He breaks the wall to show the previously unconcealed Kang head, and this is accompanied by a great delivery from Tom Hiddleston that, like people were saying, immediately makes Kang more threatening than he was in fucking Quantumania. Side note, I hate Quantumania with every fiber of my being, but let's move on. By this point, we're pretty close to being back where we were in the last season, since Loki has convinced the TVA, but the gang's got two problems: Loki teleporting all over the place, and Sylvie being completely missing. Mobius tries dealing with the teleporting problem by heading to the most charming man of all time, Ke Huy Quan. He really is great here, as the episode does this really strange thing where Loki talks to him in the past, and Mobius talks to him in the present. It's confusing, but the way Ouroboros, that's his name by the way, remembers things from the past in real time makes for probably the best comedy in the episode. During these conversations, we do get a lot of information. First of all, what Loki is doing is called time skipping, caused by Sylvie pushing him through that portal at the end of Season 1. But that's dumb, I'm calling it teleporting. Second, to fix this problem, Loki and Mobius will have to attempt an insane task that, if it goes wrong, will rip off all of Mobius' skin and also tear Loki's entire existence into pieces. Once Disney is satisfied with how much we've overused the skin-ripping joke, things get even worse as the timeline is broken, or whatever. It really is unfortunate how little I remember from the last season, because this kinda came out of nowhere for me, but I like the way they explain it, basically saying that there are so many crazy big changes happening to the timeline at once, that it just can't process it, so it's exploding. I like how it makes the timeline feel like a machine. The whole thing is a bit of a plot device to make the insane task more imminent, because if they don't do it super quick, Loki could be lost in time, but I actually really like that. A lot of this episode is cleaning up leftover stuff from the finale of Season 1, and the timeline can't be broken the whole season, so fixing it real quick doesn't bother me. This works. One of the riskiest moments comes when the show decides that on Episode 1, in a show that will only go on a streaming service during a time when Marvel rushes the hell out of their VFX team, they are going to create a scene where one of our characters goes into space in front of a literal broken timeline. Seems like the Thor 4 floating head Ant-Man 3 MODOK type shit that we'd all end up laughing at, but they managed to nail this too. Okay, maybe not nail, but at least somewhat. Mobius doing his part in this plan doesn't look bad, and I'll take that. A bit overwhelming for my little TV screen, but it looks way better than most of the stuff they've been making recently. And now it's Loki's turn. When Loki does a teleport, he ends up in the future instead of the past, as they had planned. Because of this, he's not able to find that time stick thing that helps him prune himself or whatever, and he ends up just running around looking for one. During this sequence, we get some of my favorite shots of the episode, as soon as Loki gets away from like the apocalypse happening on the outside, the whole thing just becomes really eerily calm and fancy. This is also when Sylvie finally shows up with, I think, one line total being, "There you are," and then he gets fucking pruned, which I hate saying so much, and it's over. This scene is probably the most effective at making a mysterious tone in the whole episode. We honestly have no clue what happened to Sylvie, so her reaction to seeing Loki doesn't make sense, and neither does her being there at all. I like it a lot. This is pretty much where the episode ends. Episode 1 just focuses on fixing one single problem, Loki's rampant teleporting, and they seem to do that by the end as he ends up in the present with the TVA. We also get a small tease of what'll happen in the next episode, where Sylvie will likely be hunted down like she was in Season 1. So anyways, time for my overall thoughts. To some extent, I didn't want to like this show. It's inevitable that I won't be watching more Marvel. At most, I'll be watching 2 or 3 of the important ones. So at this point, I don't want to get my hopes high for anything, since that'll make me want to watch more. But I gotta admit, guys, this episode was good. Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson have that same chemistry from the first season, as their dynamic is pretty much MCU superhero trying to save the world matched with Owen Wilson playing himself. Also, the Kang setup is awesome. All he is in this episode is some unseen force that Loki talks about like he's God. It's sick as hell. But actually, he's just a guy in court for beating his girlfriend. Then finally, and shockingly, there's the fact that it didn't overstep its boundaries. This episode managed to not push it with the CGI, it didn't push it with the humor most of the time, and it didn't give so much that I don't care to tune in next time. I'm sorry guys, but Loki is a good show, and this is a good episode. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. This right here is the one win that I will give Marvel for the next 2 years, I promise. This show is good, that's all they get. They gotta stop with the AI shit though, seriously. I'll see you next week with either my next Loki review or something different if something more interesting comes out. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.